Yo, what's going on, guys? Jared here. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be actually doing a reaction to this video of a VTuber quitting Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. And he goes into a lot of topics here, and I saw it on Farfish's channel of him talking about it. But I also wanted to go over this because I see this argument a lot of people quitting and like getting kind of really angry at Yu-Gi-Oh! And saying how bad it is, etc., etc. And it's kind of like it irks me a little bit. It irks me a lot. It irks me a lot. I'll be honest, it irks me a lot. But again, everyone's valid to their opinion. He's valid to his opinion. I have my opinion. No hate or anything towards anybody for this. So please check him out for his new content that he's making as well after quitting Master Duel. I am not by any means like doing this out of like negativity. I just want to be able to spread more opinions about this because I think it's very, very talked about in the Yu-Gi-Oh community and people quitting the Yu-Gi-Oh community, and also prevents people from joining the Yu-Gi-Oh community at the same time. I've played this game for as long as I can remember, which is over like 20 years. So I've played through all four, like I would say 99% of formats, and yeah. So and I'm top. My opinion, I'm top like competitive play in my head. So I practice a lot. I do a lot of playtesting, tops, etc., etc. So yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into this a little bit. I've never done this type of content, so this also lets you get a little bit more into my head space about the game in itself.
Hey guys, Rednu here. Let's go ahead and talk about why I'm done streaming Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Now, if you're new to my channel, let me go ahead and contextualize my position and where I'm coming from on this. Master Duel was the best thing to ever happen to my YouTube channel.
It was
and
very
overall
hyped.
to my success
Very
as
hyped.
a live streamer and content creator.
Yep,
I
to a lot of
started
people.
off making guides, and I leveraged the viewership and success of
Holy
those
crap.
guides in
These numbers are
order
insane.
to branch out.
I
into
really
what
underestimated
enjoy
how
doing,
popular
which
Master
is
Duel was.
to live stream. And I was able to make those guides because I have, at the very least, a competent level of knowledge about Yu-Gi-Oh! I played a lot of it back in 2014 at a level that at least saw me and my group of friends regularly attend locals and regional events for about a year or two. I quit the game at the time since the cost was high and my friends grew out of it, only to find myself in 2022, upon Master Duel's release, making a guide for a deck that I genuinely enjoyed learning and playing, which is Sky Strikers.
This is actually funny because I actually think that Master Duel is more expensive to get into than the actual card game. But in the card game, you can actually resell the cards that you buy. In Master Duel, you can't. You can like trade in for gems, but you take a loss on it. So I actually think it's kind of funny. I think Master Duel is actually less financially viable to get into, which is more convenient to get into. But that's just my opinion on it.
I've been streaming Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel ever since for the better part of 2 years now, and I'm absolutely sick of it. So this video is not...
I'm not gonna lie. I was sick of Master Duel in like 2 months or something. I was very quickly sick of it.
Only going to be a post-mortem and explanation to my community on why I'm no longer going to stream their favorite game, but I'm going to go ahead and spice it up a bit for anyone just peeping their head in and explain to you why I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel is the worst card game out there. To first...
I don't hate the way he worded that. I really don't like Master Duel, right? Like I love the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. I really did not like Master Duel. I did not vibe with Master Duel. It was not for me. I know there's people who really like it and love it, and that's good for you. You know, you can love it all you want. I don't like it. I don't like it because of the format and how it's a completely separate format than anything. And I think they did that so they can both approach OCG and TCG audiences together in the same game. But like for an actual, like it's good for getting other people into Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's bad for people who already played Yu-Gi-Oh because you don't want to invest in another format and learn another format and get the ins and outs of that format, especially with how they release sets too. Like cards don't come out in order at all. They just kind of like do whatever, and I also hate it. I also just hate Max 8, but that's
explain
another
why
thing.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel sucks. We have to first talk about the core issue, which is, why does Yu-Gi-Oh! Suck?
Disagree. I disagree with that statement. I don't think Yu-Gi-Oh! Sucks. I think this is a very like easy thing that to say when like comparing it to like other card games, because people tried comparing card games when they jump from card game to card game. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Is so vastly different, you shouldn't compare it. It makes it way harder on yourself.
And why Master Duel, with all of its opportunity and potential to remedy it, fails to do so. Now, again, I'm not...
I'm going to be using this clip of how bad Yu-Gi-Oh! is.
A casual level player, like Papa Mutt over here.
Can't do it
Simply
like
trying
that.
to get a rise out of the community as someone with a casual level of experience with the game. I know how this game works. I play it a lot, and my brand of content largely revolves around playing Master Duel in, at the very least, a competent level.
Is that the highest
Competent
tier?
enough
Was that the highest tier? It's common if it is. I don't remember. I hit Master Tier once, and then like whatever the highest tier was, I hit it once, and then I'm like, this was awful.
to reach Master 1 with meta and rogue decks like Sky Striker.
Hey, let's
whenever I
go,
want.
Sky Striker gang.
So my grievances
Cultured.
with the game is going to be coming from someone who has played it avidly for a good while now and only has a ton of
I give him the most props because I couldn't play that game for like more than like an hour or two without like being done with it. I just got bored. I wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't for me. So I give him a lot of props for streaming and keeping up with it.
reasons to continue to do so. The first reason why I think Yu-Gi-Oh is the worst card game out there is
Stop generalizing it. Just stop generalizing it. God, it's not Yu-Gi-Oh. It's just Master Duel, dude. You're attacking. You're like crossfiring for no reason.
its overabundance of mechanics. Now, Yu-Gi-Oh has a lot
This is like a
of
normal argument.
mechanics. Yu-Gi-Oh has 10 different summoning mechanics, 6 different special summoning mechanics, 10 different major card types, 9 different subtypes for spells and traps, 6 different abilities for monsters that pretty much act as subtypes for monsters, and then finally you have monster tokens and trap monsters that are treated differently from other monster types in the game, and even among the trap monsters, that further breaks down into 2 subtypes where you have cards like Shade Brigandine, being a
Shade
trap
Brigandine,
monster,
Paleozoics, Eldritch cards, they're
and
all
Altergeist
interact
Amulet Elf
differently.
that has reminder text letting you know that it is
the Altergeist
still a
too.
trap. You can only imagine then how all of these different permutations and combinations of
But like, I don't think that's that hard to understand, right? Like, if it says like it is still a trap, you can MST it. If it's not a trap, you can't. Like, it's not that complicated in my eyes for that. Like that argument specifically for that. But like, yeah, there's a lot of mechanics in Yu-Gi-Oh, but you could also like argument that's kind of like similar to other games too, with like, we'll say like Hearthstone, for instance. Like me, I just started playing Hearthstone again like pretty recently after not playing for years, and like seeing all the new mechanics again and having to read through them and how they work and interact. Like it takes a little bit of time, but like I still just keep playing and watching and then learning and then just keep playing, watching, learning, keep playing, watching, and learning, and then eventually it just clicks in your brain. The one that messed me up the most was Colossal, because like when it's resurrected, all of the Colossal stuff still comes back with it. But that's, again, a whole nother argument. But I think that applies with magic keywords too. Like there's a lot of magic keywords that I wasn't sure how they exactly interact. And then, obviously you just play it more and more, and then you figure it out as you go.
subtypes interact differently between Yu-Gi-Oh's 6 different turn phases and all of its open game states that lie in between. On top of all these super and subtypes of cards, there's a shameless bias.
Average
for
word
cards with
count
more.
for Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh, that's interesting, actually. Oh, well, no surprise it shot up right when Pendulum started coming out. What is this? Oh, this is around like Light of Destruction here. This is where it started. The climb started, it looked like. Yeah. Yeah, I can see this. Around 2014. Yeah, 2014, I would argue, is where the game gets a little, like, crazy. Like, around D-Rev, Sylvan area. That's where it starts getting messy with, like, card text and stuff like that. Pendulum, obviously, like... It's so sad because this is an average, right? So you have to like, I feel like Pendulum raises this so much too because you have to like double the amount almost because there's 2 text boxes.
More and more text that has only grown over the years. This creates a lot of bloat and complex interactions that absolutely everyone has run into problems with at least once in the past. Yes, everyone. Contrary to what you might think, this overabundance of mechanics is not only a new player problem, but it makes the game incredibly difficult to play and judge. Even pro players, like Pac TCG, a 2-time Yu-Gi-Oh champion and consistent top placer at official Konami events, was accused of cheating by the Yu-Gi-Oh community at a major Yu-Gi-Oh event just yesterday, from the time I'm recording this, for making a misplay that was only later caught by the official judges.
Right.
Just think.
That is... Okay. In a high stressful situation like that, in feature matches, like, you're gonna mess up. And not to say, obviously, Pac's really good and an amazing player, but, like, everyone misplays. It doesn't matter who you are. Everyone misplays. And you can see anyone talking about this. I know Jesse has said it, Pac said it, Jeff Jones has said it. Everyone misplays. and you just have to move on and like now see the new line from where your current position is. And misplaying can go into like accidental illegal plays and like obviously just doing the wrong play. And it's sad when it happens because of stuff like this where like the community on stream will just be like, oh, Pack's cheating, he knows better, yada yada. But there's like a lot of stuff going on, right? Where like, yes, there's a lot of like hidden effects of cards. I know he like mentions it, where stuff like that, where Turpin works specifically in a way where you have to equip to your monster and Pack summon it with an opponent's equip card, equipped to an opponent's monster. So like I don't think that's like the game's fault, right? Like it's not the game's fault for just having effects and people using them properly. Like I don't know, to me that's like this example is that's a judge problem to me. Like there are 3 judges that that are there that I feel like you should be like maintaining game state properly. And it's just like a regular thing that happens on streams, and I'm sure many people who watch the streams like I do catch it a lot, where judges are missing these types of things, and it's very frustrating to watch as someone who like sees this, knows it's wrong, stream like smashes it, and is just like saying like this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And then like now we have to rewind, and then there could be like a penalty, and it's like, well, if the judge was there maintaining proper game state in the first place for an honest mistake, we wouldn't have to give out this random PE penalty, like PE minor penalty for an infraction, which is frustrating, to say the least. So I don't know. I don't think that's like a game's fault, because yeah, I think there's other complex game states where people mess up too.
About that for a second, it wasn't just the pro players sitting across from each other who were unable to catch the misplay as it happened, but the official judges as well. The misplay, by the way, was illegal. Pack was issued a warning since it was caught late, which enough people were upset enough about to compel him to try and explain himself in a tweet.
I remember all that.
Whether or not he was cheating doesn't matter. I doubt he was, since he has so much at stake if he were ever caught cheating. But if Yu-Gi-Oh is too over-convoluted for even the top level of pro players and judges to play and judge properly, then it says a lot about the...
I don't think that's like the game. I think that's just paying attention. Like, I don't know. To me, if I used to judge quite a bit, and if I didn't know, or I even thought that I had a question of a card when I was judging a match, I would read the card and just tell the players to keep playing. I just want to double check something. I feel like that these judges don't do that a lot, and it's like kind of frustrating, because it's important to keep my game state in like proper game state, and to avoid situations like these. I hated this whole situation just because I feel like the least people who are fault it is to me is like Aditya and Pack, because it's just something that should be taken care of like before it gets to like where you have to rewind, which is just frustrating
for everyone else further down the food chain. The bloat in Yu-Gi-Oh's mechanics often causes confusion, which in turn leads to a frustrating gameplay experience for many people, including me. Not only does Yu-Gi-Oh have too many mechanics, but it also has horrible card design that is a direct result of an abuse of power creep. For instance, trap card.
All right. Abuse of power creep is a strong word, like a strong terminology, right? Abuse of power creep, that's like the card games that have gone under because of power creep issues. Like I know Dragon Ball Super had issues with power creep. I think Force of Will had power creep issues. Like a lot of games have power creep issues. Yu-Gi-Oh has been going for over 20 years. Like they are the least abuse of power creep. Like, yeah, there's going to be power creep in 20 years, dude. Like, like I don't know what you want. I think they've been doing a pretty good job of keeping it pretty like mitigated and still be able to print cards for these older archetypes to make them kind of relevant again. Like, yeah, not every old card in the archetype is going to make a comeback, but like the fact that you can do that and kind of hold the value of how the archetype was played, I think says a lot for how Konami designs some of like a lot of these cards. I do have a problem with some like card design. This isn't one of them, surprisingly. Like there is like a select few cards where like Spellbook of Judgment like came out. Like when that was released, I was like, this is like, that's like, come on, like that's too much. Like obviously Dragon Wars being another example of just like, oh my God, like this is such a jump in power. But like, obviously the ban list like mitigates it back down, and then like release cards and mitigates back down, and then it goes up and down, and that like keeps it at like a kind of steady ish level, I should say.
cards are practically irrelevant in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! There's a really good video that explains this by Key Yu-Gi-Oh! That I can refer you to, but basically
Yes and
because
no.
trap cards are cards that can only be used after it has been set for one turn on your turn, they are too slow. The only
are
trap
slow,
cards
yeah.
you see being played are either archetype-specific trap cards that do so much for that particular archetype, or cards that literally change how trap cards work, like Infinite Impermanence, which is a trap card that negates monster effects and can be activated.
Like, I
in your
agree with you and
hand
disagree with
if
you at the same
control
time.
no other cards on the field.
Like,
bypassing
there are
a
trap
card
decks
restriction.
that you can play that, like, a lot of boards can't deal with, like, set 5. Like, there's only like a select number of monsters that deal with back row right now, right? Like, Nightmare Unicorn isn't seeing a lot of play right now. And Nightmare Phoenix isn't seeing a lot of play right now. So a lot of the generic extra deck cards that deal with it, there's very not great. So like a lot of the times, like something like Solemn Strike and Torrential Tribute will still have like a very high impact on a game state, even in modern Yu-Gi-Oh times. It's just that modern Yu-Gi-Oh players don't know about like playing around these things. They don't understand how to play around. It's a new type of Yu-Gi-Oh that a lot of the times if you put it in the face of a newer player, they don't know how to play through it properly. Like it's just kind of, it's just like a Yugi boomer type of take, but like a lot of new players don't know how to play around, and when they're forced to play Yu-Gi-Oh, like things like Sky Striker where they forced you to play, they don't know how to play around things properly. Yeah, like I don't know. I don't think trap cards are like completely cycled out. They're just like, it just takes a certain format, right? Like that's all it is to me. Like even right now, Labyrinth's played. If you play like the Elbachi deck, like yeah, there's floodgates in it, but there's also like Dogmatic of Punishment, Solemn Strike, Torrential Tribute, Compulse. Even Labyrinth is playing Tears of the Overroot, Erratic Epidemic Virus. Like I don't know. I don't. This is not as big of a deal as I think it is made out to be. Yeah, that's just
and
me.
thus its identity entirely. And if it's not those trap cards that's being played, then the trap cards are likely only being used by specific archetypes like Labyrinth or Traptrix, who
Yeah.
are designed with mechanics that explicitly enhance a trap card's performance. Labyrinth Kuklok, for example, allows you to activate a normal trap card the turn it was set, as opposed to waiting a turn.
Yeah, but there's
making it
Trap Labyrinth where they
practically
just
a
set
spell.
5 and they're not even
And I
playing
wanted to
furnitures.
start with this example.
So, and that was still
because
like
trap
really, really
cards being
strong.
functionally outdated.
I don't know. I
is
just don't.
a symptom of
I agree with them. Like some of them being not like, it just depends on the format. It's all format dependent. Like sometimes trap cards are really, really strong and the game slows down. Other times it's not. It's a lot of variables with how trap cards interact in the game.
horrible card design, which comes from Konami's over-reliance and abuse of power creep in order to sell cards.
It's been 20 years,
the
man.
reason why trap cards are outdated is because modern Yu-Gi-Oh is too fast. There is no mana, like in Magic or Hearthstone, that limits your options.
Oh, good. That's where I
The
can compare most things is from Hearthstone and Magic.
only thing that limits your play in Yu-Gi-Oh are three things: your one normal summon, the quantity and quality of the cards in your hand, as well as the number of zones available on the field.
All right, there's like, I feel like cost should be mentioned here, like activation requirements. That's also very important. It's, I don't know. That's just
All
me.
of these things
But
are easily
like
managed.
most cards have a requirement to activate them. It's not just like you can just do it all the time forever. Like restrictions as well, you know, drawing after a pot of extravagance or something like that. Like there's
and
other
circumvented
restrictions that you
by
have to build
modern
around.
Yu-Gi-Oh card design. Your one normal
That's where deck building comes into play.
summon hardly dictates how many monsters that you can normal summon. There are so many cards in Yu-Gi-Oh that draws you more cards to supply you with quantity and either special summon, search, or dig for a specific card.
This card should be banned. Again, this is like a reasonable take for how the
dictates
game's played.
how many monsters that you can normal summon. There are so many cards in Yu-Gi-Oh that draws you more.
Like this is fine because of how this card's designed. This is actually like Pot of Desires is actually, in my opinion, one of the greatest design cards in the game because it's such a risk to take. I've seen so many players lose off of Pot of Desires, but at the same time, I've also seen a lot of players win off Pot of Desires. And it's also important for the opponent to know when your opponent starts playing like funky in their deck ways of like what they banished. This is actually, again, that's just my opinion. I think this is actually one of the best design cards that we've had.
Cards to supply you with quantity and either.
I mean, yeah, the best psychic support we ever got was in the first set, which is Emergency Teleport. And this is at 1 for a long time. It just came back.
Special summon, search, or dig for
This card should be banned. It's not the problem with prosperity, it's not restricted enough. Like desires, on the other hand, very restrictive. This is not
A
restricted.
specific card in your deck to make up for the quality. There are too many zones for it as a limitation to matter. Multiple monsters combine with each other into a single form, with special summoning mechanics like Exceed Summon, Fusion Summon, or Synchro Summoning, in order to make powerful boss monsters that exist in an extra deck. A deck that exists entirely separate from the main deck that you draw from. This gives you full access to a suite of boss monsters that your deck, assuming it was built by anyone with a competent level of knowledge in this game, likely it is because you probably net decked your deck, should have no problem tapping into. This overall lack of limitation dilutes any sort of variance that is present in practically every other card game, and what it
I don't agree with that.
leads to are an overabundance of games that feel very similar to each other.
There are certain times where this is true, but then there's also not times where this is true. Again, it's all format dependent. This isn't every format in Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's why it's like kind of frustrating. If you go pre-Age of Overlord, everything was different. Nobody was making the same thing. The only same thing that was being made a lot of the time was like Baron between like 4 different decks. And that is more of generic, like really good generic card. That is where things like Anaconda, DPE, Baron, SP Little Knight, Typhon, Zeus, that's where like that stuff comes in. But like being able to play those cards and ending on those cards every turn 1 are like 2 different things, right? Like not every deck, like if every deck was like, I'm ending on SP Little Knight, go. And like that's what like Prank Kids is ending on. That's what Eldritch is ending on. That's what every deck is ending on. Dragon's ending on it. It's just not true. That's just not factually accurate in my opinion. Like every deck is still ending on different, like a Vanadium board, and a Dragon Link board are different. They have similarities, but they are different. It's not like DPE Predaplant. That was where this was an issue. That was, to me, like every deck, every combo always ended on Predaplant, DPE. That was annoying. I get it.
Why would your matchup against a dominant archetype like Pirelli feel any different game by game if Pirelli has 3 cards that can search for 12 cards that can perform the same function of special summoning one of 6 monsters in your deck that either dig for those 12 cards or search for the 3 cards that searches for one of those aforementioned 12?
Yes and no. Again, like Pirelli is like a good example of that because there's so much deck interaction. But at the same time, I like when you make like every deck has a goal when built, right? Like it's kind of like saying like you're playing like an Eldritch deck and like you set 5 and then they're all like card design, like it's just deck building. It's how like like that game is that deck's designed to go into that type of like board, like noir trap setup, but like every deck has a goal, and if Pirelli's goal is to go trap and that, like that's what it goes for. Like Pirelli used to go like plump and what is it, the blue one I think it was, and beauty. It was used to go plump beauty, and that was the end board. But the game evolved, and we got new cards, and now it's doing for a different board. I don't think that's like a problem. Like Dragon likes to end on Boral and Savage. That's not like people figured that out. That's not, that just happens to be the best thing to play around stuff. So I don't know. This is like, and this is also like without hand traps too, right? Like if you are still able to accomplish a combo through hand traps, you feel a lot better about it. But if you're not, but if you mess it up or you get stopped, like then you have to do some wonky play. It's you know what I mean? Like I don't know. I feel like it's not that.
I'll save you the trouble of parsing that confusing sentence. That is 21 cards in a maximum deck size of 40 that can pretty much search for itself, meaning over half the cards in a Pirelli deck is a super consistent engine of destruction that preys upon everything else. Ask anyone that plays card games at a somewhat competent level, and they will tell you the very same thing. This is ridiculous.
I think like Pirelli is like the only example of like 20 e-tellies. Like, I don't know. That feels cheeky. That feels like a cheeky way of like making this argument. That's just my opinion.
Consistency is power, and consistency is king in card games.
Yes, consistency is key in every card game. It's everything. You want the most chances to be able to play. It's normal. I don't see an issue with this. In my opinion, I don't see an issue with this.
This leaves the only traces of variance for top performing decks to be practically restricted behind the initial coin flip that determines who goes first and who goes second, because whoever goes first is able to do their crazy combo setup, and whoever goes second has to respond.
He's very like lacking like deck building discussion too, which is kind of frustrating because you know what I mean. Like if Pirelli's the best deck, you're just gonna play like a kaiju, and then the deck's just bad, and you just lose. And then the Pirelli deck has to adapt and make a different board now. Maybe you go back to the Plump Happiness board, or Beauty board. Like I don't know. It's kind of like I don't know. Like people don't like solving stuff. I guess people just want to build their decks the way they want to build them, and not have to worry about their opponent. I guess like I don't like this this argument.
That all said, this doesn't leave the second turn player at a disadvantage technically, because this too is balanced by good old power creep, and goes back to why trap cards are outdated.
Hand trap
a
argument.
good deck will have enough interruption that can be played from the hand, or enough cards that totally invalidate the other player's turn. Ash Blossom will flat out stop effects that search or special summon from the deck. Kaijus are monsters that summon on your opponent's side of the field by tributing your opponent's monsters, completely bypassing any destruction or targeting immunity. Nibiru, the primal being, is a meteor that can be summoned from the hand and obliterates the entire field on your opponent's turn.
It do be a meteor.
If the opponent was dumb enough to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And perform 5 or more summons.
Dude,
why would anyone...
If you're... God, if you're playing a deck that, like, do you know how many times I've lost to having a dead Nibiru in my hand at the same time? Like, God, just talk about, like, a meta, like, meta-defining stuff. Like a certain meta, I get it. Like, that makes sense. But, like, you're just, like, taking it so blankly. Like, it's so frustrating. My first deck in Master Duel was True Draco, because I knew everybody was going to play 3 Max C. I activated Duality, and people were chaining Max C so many times, and I am just laughing at them because of just, I'm beating you from deck building already. And that's how I got to the top rated. It's so frustrating.
Wait a turn and rely on trap cards when these cards, ironically named as hand traps, are able to respond to and invalidate any board as soon as the game begins. Why wouldn't you play cards that invalidate your opponent's entire setup, like Dark Ruler No More, a spell card that not only wipes all the card text and effects from your opponent's monsters, rendering them useless, but explicitly states that it cannot be responded to by the most conventional means.
He's making that card sound so broken. It's not even played. Dark Ruler's not played. What was the last time you saw a Dark Ruler No More activated? Maybe in Master... I highly doubt it. Wait, there's no side decking in Master Duel, right? So I'm going to assume that there's no Dark Ruler in Master Duel as well. But how... In the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, I haven't seen a Dark Ruler get dropped in months. This card is not good anymore. Like, it's not. The boards, the way boards are developed now, they're not just like... Not every board is an Infernoble Knight board with a million negates on it. Yes, I understand that and that concept, but that's where things like the Nibiru, Imperm, Ash, like, and Droll, like, all really, like, can come in and like, mess with you. Or, like, a Raw Sphere mode. Like, all that stuff matters. But, like, if you're just gonna say, like, put, like, blank, broken, going second cards into the video just for argument's sake, like, you could do that about, like, going first, like, generic trap cards as well. It's just, I don't know. Like, is Torrential Tribute broken because you can wipe 5 monsters on the field just because I went first? Like, I don't know. It could be. It's just in the right scenario.
Because of Yu-Gi-Oh's card design, a lot of its gameplay loops thus feel very binary. Did you win the coin flip or not? Did you open your combo play or not? Did you open enough interruption or cards that invalidate your opponent's turn or not? And all of this is decided within the first couple turns of the game, meaning nobody has time to set trap cards and...
What is this board state? Why is there a... Who was playing this? In Master Duel, at least. Wait, this is so good. What? Wait, hang on. This hand's crazy. This looks like it's going to be a great game. This game looks great. This example he's using looks amazing.
Play them, and also that there are very...
Like, I want to watch this game head down. Oh, okay. It's a guy scooping the lava golem. Yeah, the guy got. I don't know what you want from me. Like, he had runic cards and he scooped. I don't know. This doesn't make sense.
Would there be...
He had multi-interaction board and he scooped to a lava golem. When his board was just Hugin Unicorn. Don't play against a bad player and then use some stupid, like, example with, like, that example specifically as someone, like, looking at it is frustrating.
Any sort of complexity when there are so many cards like Evenly Matched and Dark Ruler No More, which have the potential to pacify the opponent's entire board.
if you can play around it, you play around it. Giving your opponent an Ibli, it makes Evenly Match and Lightning Storm and Kashtira Fenrir useless cards. It's a big
Yu-Gi-Oh's
deal.
card design dictates the pacing of the game. With its lack of resource mechanics, its reliance of convoluted effects.
Pendulum was a mistake. I will openly say that. The way Pendulum's card design was terrible. If they just said every Pendulum card was removed from the game, I wouldn't even hate it. That would just be fine to me.
And the abundance of solutions that reduce monsters and entire boards to paperweights and dust. It places so much emphasis and importance within the first couple of turns. You're never plotting out damage over a sequence of turns, and you're never setting up an elaborate plan over any sort of duration. There is no
So he's saying like
point in thinking about turns 4 and on when everything that matters is right in front of you.
Okay, so you're comparing it to things like Hearthstone Magic, which is frustrating here because in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not over turns. Your next move matters a lot. Every single thing you do when you start the game is already like I've said this a lot to like my friends where like like for like Magic and Hearthstone, like the game really starts and picks up where you guys start planning your moves around like turn like 3, 4, 5 is in that range of things where you start getting your more powerful costing stuff. In Yu-Gi-Oh! It's just right off the bat. You are in that like level of thinking and thought and like which card you need to play immediately and what you need to play around immediately. Like off the rip. And I don't like the way that this is being described here because he's making it seem like that like if they're like, yeah, if you're playing a combo deck and your combo deck is uninteractable and then you went first, sure, you're probably gonna win game 1, I guess. But like in Master Duel, this is a problem because there's no side deck, so it's frustrating. But in like real Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, this is not a big of a problem because you can put in like the cards that really affect that game. So it's just like there is there's more thinking in Yu-Gi-Oh! Than I think there is in Hearthstone and Magic to me. It's Hearthstone is a different example because there's like RNG stuff in that game where like transforming and adding random things. But in like Magic specifically, I have definitely thought way more in Yu-Gi-Oh! Than Magic.
Means there is no sense of tempo.
And Hearthstone from when I played it.
In-game tactics, and there is no long-term strategy.
There's absolutely tactics. You can force your opponent's stuff to miss timing at times. Things like that. Like you just have to have the knowledge of, which is a convoluted ruling that you have to know. But if you're like trying to learn the game, it's in a competitive sense, you should know.
Everything happens at a breakneck pace, and so many things are inherently unfair by being uninteractable, which reduces the number of meaningful decisions you make in a game. The final thing I will say
I don't know, man. I don't agree with that.
That bothers me.
Like, there's ways to play around everything. That's what I'll say.
The most about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is its lack of flavor. And I know that sounds weird if you don't come from card games, but let me explain. In Magic the Gathering, you, the player, are a planeswalker, an entity that can travel between separate universes with ease. You tap into naturally occurring ley lines that produce magical energy in the form of mana in order to cast spells and basically conduct wizard battle with your nerdy friends. The spells you cast come from a mental library, which in-game is your deck of cards. This explains why every card, other than lands, in Magic is considered a spell, and thus can be counterspelled. Even creature cards are spells that summon creatures into battle. This background
that always confused me when I played Magic. That's so confusing. To this day, it's still confusing to me that creatures are spell cards. Which is again, it's a comparison to Yu-Gi-Oh, which you shouldn't do. But it's to get it. Like obviously now I know that, but the getting used to that is something that's kind of like a
lot of context to the thematic design of cards. Thoughtseize is a card that discards any card from your opponent's hand, but thematically, you are reading the conscious mind of the enemy player and stealing their thoughts away. Gingerbrute is a small gingerbread cookie given life, so he's typed as a food golem. Given his size, he has small stats and has haste, expressing his ability to fit into tight spaces and move quickly. And when you're done using him, you can activate its third ability, which says to sacrifice Gingerbrute in order to give you
I'm not even going to comment on this argument because there is stuff like this in Yu-Gi-Oh!
This continues in Sir Ginger, who can also be eaten. Dragons, barring exceptions, all have flying in their card text and usually have a 4/4 or 5/5 stat line. And if they don't have those things, often they will have.
Again, you're like picking stuff in the game that for these examples, but there is stuff in Yu-Gi-Oh that has stuff
in abundance.
Kurikara attributing your opponent's stuff.
Games. It's very clear
Flesh and Blood.
that it is a conscious design decision.
Well, that's a new card game, so yeah, you can do it freely in the beginning, but not every Magic card has like thematic card text like that. That's not every single card. But yeah, I don't know. Also, I don't think this is a big deal.
Purely mechanical in contrast. Why can Keshtira Fenrir search for any Keshtira monster, including itself, which most cards that search for cards are unable to do? What about E Purely Happiness tells you that it is more adept at fetching any sort of Purely card from your deck after attacking, or that it can have the attack of a monster on the field after doing so?
I like it when Pearlies have a happy memory, then they turn into a happy Pearly.
I can Bishul Magnamut can search for any dragon monster, and none of his sibling cards can. Flavor isn't totally non-existent in Yu-Gi-Oh, of course, and Magic isn't without stale cards. But in Yu-Gi-Oh, Flavor is clearly playing third or fourth fiddle. And it makes sense why. Yu-Gi-Oh is plagued with a gross amount of power creep. Good cards need to do a lot of things. And how can you express all of this card text succinctly in just one art piece? Magic the Gathering cards, in contrast, can remain relatively simple in design because power creep isn't nearly as present thanks to its standard rotating format. A simple design is more easily...
Wait, don't bring in the rotation. Don't bring in rotation. I hate it. I hate it when people say Yu-Gi-Oh needs to rotate. Because to me, that is like a way of like conformity of like everyone else has a rotating format and we want to be like everyone else. I don't want to be like everyone else. I like Yu-Gi-Oh because I can go back 15 years and pluck a card and be like, oh, this applies to this meta. I'm going to use this. Things like Enemy Controller and Book of Moon, and even things like Effective Hour and DD Crow, those are old cards that are still playing like today. You can still go back and grab those cards. Things like Dark Hole, Raigeki, Monster Reborn, all of these cards can still be played today. And I think that makes a huge difference in game design. So it's such a slippery slope comparing this game to things like Magic and Hearthstone, and Pokemon as well, where like they don't have this like, I don't want to call it an issue, but this design in the game, and it makes a big difference. So I don't like that. It's not a fair comparison to do that in my eyes.
A single art piece, and thus Magic generally has much more powerfully expressive card art. All of this is why I think Yu-Gi-Oh sucks. Now, clearly everything here and everything else I'm about to say is based purely on preference and my opinion.
Yes.
I mean, what else would it be? Everyone who continues to play the game clearly doesn't place as much importance or stock on these things as I do, and that's completely fine. I am only explaining my position and why I favor other card games vastly more than Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic the Gathering has powerful and succinct expression in its cards, and I like the pacing of its limited formats. Lorcana has great original art.
Oh, speaking of Lorcana, which I am playing, talk about a game that feels the same every time you play it. Lorcana felt the same every time I played it after first chapter. And granted, I'm not going to say like this is specifically Lorcana's fault because it's one set in, right? It's like playing like after like LOB format. It's the same thing. But like that was a complaint. That's why I stopped playing it for like a long time because the game just felt the same once Red Purple was figured out, and I'm like, oh wow, I can't wait to get Maui'd and then Dragon Fired and be prepared in Lorcana every time, and every other strategy just falls flat to it. It was frustrating. So I'm like, I don't know, man. Like that's just like a bad example here for us.
Turns the competitive TCG paradigm on its head by making a resource building game as opposed to a game that is focused on destroying the other player.
Why is that viewed so badly? Like, it's so viewed badly that Yu-Gi-Oh is a successful game that does not have a big resource type of thing incorporated into it. That makes it so unique and so different and so fun. And you would think that would make people happy to play something different. That's a different feeling. And instead, people just get so mad about it when they do these comparison videos. It's crazy to me.
Flesh and Blood is slowly overtaking all of them in my list of preference thanks to its flavorful card and game design, which revolves entirely around fantasy
Flesh and Blood,
classes
cool game.
And their equipment.
I don't play it all. I've like looked into it. Looks cool. I like the way the cards are designed and stuff. It's different. It's very different. I know there's like resource management, but it's not like Magic and Hearthstone. So if you like looking for other card games to play, Flesh and Blood's like a cool one to like look into a little bit.
On about how other card games are so much better in my opinion, but I'll save it for another video. Let's go ahead and instead talk about why Master Duel is the worst digital card game out there and why I will no longer stream it. Despite Yu-Gi-Oh's vast card pool and its successful...
I can't. No, I can't agree with that because there's other digital card games that have gone under and gone flat. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Master Duel is the worst one, but do I think it's definitely not good in context of other card game comparisons? Yeah, I would definitely say that.
Driven formats, Master Duel.
I say that specifically because Yu-Gi-Oh is a game that should not be played without games 2 and 3 because it leads to a lot of the problems that he's taught. Like that's where like the problems talk about, like where these problems come into major effect.
Has no accommodations for playing any desirable alternate game modes. Why I say desirable is because there are technically alternate formats, but nobody plays them. And there is no matchmaking for these formats outside of Team Battle, which, you guessed it, nobody plays. Now that that's out of the way,
it's like they picked the worst formats to put in for Master Duel. And again, I haven't played Master Duel in a long time now, but like I completely understand where he's coming from with this.
Well, the most successful community formats by far include Edison and GOAT. Edison and GOAT formats are what is known as Time Wizard formats, meaning that they represent a format that existed sometime in Yu-Gi-Oh's rich history, including what cards were available to them at the time, how those cards worked, and which cards were forbidden or limited.
It's important to understand that those formats also have their round of BS in them. GOAT specifically is very bad with like BS stuff in it, so just something to keep in mind. Like they're not perfect formats either, right? That's why I always say it's format for these things. It's format dependent. Edison, I would say, is more of like the one where it's like pretty well rounded. Like there's the least amount of BS in it, but GOAT has like some bad stuff in it.
Represents Yu-Gi-Oh in April of 2005, and Edison represents Yu-Gi-Oh in March of 2010. Edison is so popular that it was suggested to Raran, a Hearthstone content creator who originally wanted to give 10 hours and learn Yu-Gi-Oh with Master Duel, then got so frustrated with the game that he quit.
I wish that he didn't learn it on Master Duel.
Early after 4. But what's the problem?
I think Master Duel is such a bad introduction to the game for players, but that's just me.
If Edison is so good and only represents a previous format in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, why doesn't the community just play Edison in Master Duel? After all, Master Duel has all of the cards that Edison format uses since it's just using an older card pool. Well, the problem is that Edison and GOAT format literally cannot be played in Master Duel. Edison and GOAT format play with old Yu-Gi-Oh rules, which are significantly different to the rules of modern-day Yu-Gi-Oh. As well, several key cards have been officially reworded and nerfed from since then.
This was one of the biggest things that I disagree with in modern Yu-Gi-Oh. Like this is something I would complain about if I was in his shoes. I would complain about this. Like I hate where cards are banned and then changed and then brought back with different effects. Because to me, you're like taking away what the card was. At that point, just make it a new card. Just make a new card that you wanted to have. Like, why didn't we leave Sangan alone and what it was, and then just have it be a new card? You could even do like a retrain of Sangan and then have it just do something similar but different with where you wanted it to end on, right? That makes more sense to me because you're not taking it away and you're not destroying an annoyance of like popular old formats with these Time Wizard things. And that's just my opinion on it. Because then where people go back in their old cards and they're like, oh, I want to play this. And then they go to some kind of local tournament and they're like, oh, well, actually that card doesn't actually do that. They changed it in like 2017 or something.
Since Master Duel cannot be customized in any which way regarding ban lists, rule changes, rulings, or nerfs, it's not only practical to play those formats given the rarities.
That was one of my complaints in Master Duel.
Flat out impossible.
You can only play ranked mode, which is
any
frustrating.
Desirable alternate game mode,
or like just normal.
There's no effort
1v1
for Konami to give you alternate formats to play. The only alternate formats that players can widely play are limited time events, and only a few of them were really successful. They exist mostly as a means for the player base to farm currency, as opposed to being something that was thoughtfully designed for players to have fun thinking about the game in a different way. Given how limited the time frame is to enjoy these alternate game modes and how inconsistent they are in terms of quality and fun, I think it is a total failing on Konami's part that the only way we can interact with Yu-Gi-Oh's rich and diverse card pool is through its horrible current standard format. Now, we can't get away from talking about the elephant in the room, and that is Max C.
Yes,
Max
terrible
C
card.
is by far the most poorly designed card to exist.
Yes, he agrees.
The only thing you need to know about Max C
Yes.
is in its effect, which reads, during either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. This turn, each time your opponent special summons a single or multiple monsters, immediately draw one card. You can only use one Max C per turn. This one card, which has existed.
This is not going to be a Maxi
entirety of
discussion
Master
video,
Duel,
but Maxi is
single-handedly
the best card in
ruins the
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Entire game,
Printed
and its
for
presence is felt in every
and it's only because of the
game.
direction that the
If
game went.
you don't understand, let me explain. Max C punishes your opponent for playing Yu-Gi-Oh! We've already gone over how fast Yu-Gi-Oh! Is and how everything is determined within the first 2 turns. Almost any competent deck is going to special summon a lot, whether to set up a death maze on turn 1 or to handle the death maze on turn 2. This one card, therefore, is a counter to almost every playable deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! And the decks that aren't countered by this card were either eviscerated by Konami with their ban lists or are too slow or not nearly as consistent as the
Wait, Maxi's
premier
pretty good
meta
against
decks.
Monarch.
How is it so
You can get like a draw
effective?
1 or 2
All
sometimes.
you do is draw cards. Well, I'll refer you to this video, but let me go ahead and quickly explain myself. In a game where there is no mana and virtually nothing to limit your play other than the quantity and quality of cards in your hand, Max C provides an overwhelming advantage to its player. You don't need quality cards if you have enough of them. Even
Correct.
drawing 1 or 2 cards in a game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, where so many cards search, draw, and dig for other cards in your deck, is enough to give its player an incredible advantage. It doesn't
Yes.
matter if there exist strategies and decks to counter Max C. They are not nearly as consistent, nor are they as effective enough as this one card. You can disagree, but you're wrong. A whopping 93% of decks
Yeah,
have
you win
Max
that
C
one.
in their
You got
deck,
it.
and 98 times out of 100 at max 3 copies. The other card that I have in the image is Ash Blossom, which is the second most played card because it is, among other things, Max C's direct counter. Because Max C is so powerful,
I mean, Ash is
it
also just really good in
generalizes
general,
deck
but yeah.
building. Almost every deck has to pay the Max C tax by including at least 3 copies of Max C
Again, my
and 3
issue
copies
with
of Ash Blossom
the
in
game.
your build, with
One of the issues
other
with the
counter
game.
cards as a consideration. This will likely never change given that these cards are max rarity cards in Master Duel, and thus it is a tax that practically all players will pay with their precious points that they use to craft cards, which obviously translates to revenue for Konami. On top of this, Eastern players are largely tolerant and or supportive of Max C's inclusion in the game, as it has been a long-time staple in their exclusive
It depends who you're asking,
format,
buddy.
the OCG, which is separate from the Universal Master Duel format and the Western player
I know
physical
OCG
format.
players have been wanting
Given
Maxi
how
banned too.
necessary Max C is
not just
to all
one-sided.
players and its support
Depends who you ask.
from the player base that Konami has a bias towards, Max C will very likely never be banned in Master Duel. And remember how I said how Yu-Gi-Oh! Feels so binary? Well, Master Duel is worse because of Max C. Now on top
agree.
of the coin flip minigame that you so desperately want to win in a
But when there's one game,
format,
Max C
you
has to
also
like
have a huge
because
focus
of the. I think the whole problem with Master Duel is one game. Yu-Gi-Oh is not a game designed for one game. It's not. You cannot play the game like that. It's not fun. There's clear advantages and disadvantages, and you need your side deck to make those manageable. And because there is no side deck, it is extremely frustrating when stuff like Max C is dropped on you, or when you are deck built around, like playing against a trap deck with no back row removal. It's extremely frustrating.
of all of your games.
It's also what made Runic so good, was because Runic is good at going first and second, so it has a natural advantage against like 90% of the meta. Same thing with Hero Man. It's good at going first and second.
Practically invalidated by this single card. Whether it's you using Max C on your opponent and reaping an instant win, or your opponent unleashing it upon you, absolutely nobody is having fun. I can go on and on about Master Duel being bad, not just for me, but for casual players as well. Casual match is a joke. The fact that I can't set up a team battle in the lobby to have fun with friends.
Yeah, I don't
is
know the
ridiculous.
ins and outs.
Not being able to implement a custom ban list for a lobby is dumb. And the fact that I can't enable a best of 3 option with side decking in the lobby is so mind-numbingly stupid.
Yes. Yes, that is so frustrating. It doesn't make any sense in the game design. I don't get it.
And it's all indicative of what I hate the most about Master Duel, which is Konami's cold and utterly detached relationship it shares with the Western community. The
Oh,
community
I have said that for years. The lack of communication that we get from Konami is so like infuriating because like even the simplest things is like you just don't get an answer to. It's so frustrating. I still have not gotten my mat prizing from Konami from like the extravaganza I got second at. And I've emailed like 4 times about that. And I still do not have my mat. And no, they stopped answering me. And it's just like I got one answer and they're like, we're working on it, they're still making it. And then like I just kept emailing months and months. I think we're like over a year past that, like, or getting close to a year to that event when I played in it. And I still like nothing. It's so frustrating that like their community, their company just does not have like, dude, you only need like a person or two to just like communicate and shed some light and give some like just some kind of reassurance and answer questions for something. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that we could use more clarification on, whether it be ban list, where in the next couple months is like from like a big corporation like Konami. That's like so infuriating. Like I miss when it was like, this is the day we're getting a ban list on this day. That was amazing. That was so good. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse over the years. And then the suspended player list, like being able to get communication through that is the same thing. Like you could get banned and not know why you got banned, and you probably wouldn't even get an answer to why you got banned for like months on end or weeks at least. It's so frustrating.
community cannot hold Konami accountable to anything. It has only shown indifference in the face of any complaints. Because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is so wildly different than any other card game and has a strong brand identity with its anime, Konami has no reasonable fear that its player base may dramatically change from poaching or as a consequence from their decisions. In fact, major decisions from their perspective only pose a risk to lose players. Banning Maxi may please a lot of Western players, but how many new players will it create? How many Eastern players will they lose as a result of this decision? The trade-off is obvious. There's no reason for Konami to make any major changes when they are the sole kingpin that holds this specific brand of cardboard crack that its player base is so fervently loyal to.
I've been saying that for years, cardboard crack. But Master Duel should have, I will stick to this, Master Duel should have been a simulator. It should have been you pick a TCG format or you pick the OCG format. And then you could go into like an Edison format and you go into a GOAT format. And it is best 2 out of 3. You can make a custom ban list if you want to, but the ladders are GOAT, Edison, TCG, OCG with side decking, and that's what you play. That would have been absolutely phenomenal. And I would have played it and I would have kept playing it because it would have been so much fun. And you would have that would have probably single-handedly taken out a third-party website, but they didn't do it because, in my opinion, it just seems like greed. I just see it as greed because they wanted to make an entire new format where you have to get entire new cards to do this entire new game, and it's so frustrating.
Konami has no ambition to make Yu-Gi-Oh! Appeal.
Like, Master Duel did not need a world championship. I will be the first one to say that. It did not need it. I did not need Master Duel Worlds. I needed Master Duel to be a game I could play on my computer and phone and to play real Yu-Gi-Oh! Not this fake imaginary format.
To a wider market because they know it's a horribly convoluted mess that's hard to teach, hard to watch, and that's literally why they made Rush Duel. Certain marketing moves, like their recent deck flexing series, gives me some hope for the future of the game, but the fact that it took a better
This is cool. I like that they did this. I remember they adjusted Wong on for one of these. That was cool. I like the VTubing too. Like I said, I'm a VTubing fan, so it's fine. But I like that they were trying to spread out and get into bigger names and content creators. In my opinion, it just like took way too long. Like they could have been doing this since like 2010, man. Like this isn't a new thing. There's been people doing this. They could have reached out and like they just didn't see the potential at the time, and it just took way too long for them to start doing collaborations like this.
2 years for Konami to realize that Master Duel has the potential to appeal to a wider audience, and that it might be a really good idea for them to leverage their loyal and successful indie content creators to do that. It tells me that Konami is too slow to adapt, and that I can just go ahead and do myself a big favor of not playing the game until they decide to improve it, and so that's what I'll do.
Yeah, you read that right. That's good.
Master Duel was absolutely my biggest break. I've met one of my closest friends in this space.
I am very happy for him to be able to have made it this far with Master Duel. It's awesome.
Every time I turn on a Master Duel stream at my regular time, I can reasonably expect anywhere between 60 to 150 people to hop in. I'm not sure if many people can relate to how gratifying it feels for someone like me, an indie content creator that loves streaming, to have that expectation be met on a consistent basis. The point is, I stand to lose a lot. You could argue that I would service myself a lot better if I could just stop my feelings of the game from affecting my desire to make content. But I can't. The
I don't
reality
know. I'm a
is,
strong believer of like you have to enjoy what you do, or else your content suffers very badly. That's why there's times where like even I'll like not upload for a long time because I'm not feeling it. Like I don't like the way the game is, or I'm just not into it, and I feel like I'm half-assing it. I'm not putting my effort, my competitive effort brain into it because sometimes I don't feel into it. It happens. But I mean, it's different for somebody who does it full time and has more time to do these types of things. But I'm a strong believer of enjoy what you do, what you play, et cetera, et cetera.
I hate this game. And I hate more that I've convinced myself
That's a good thing
for
to
so
come back
long
to.
that it's the only avenue that I have as a content creator. I've made guides for other games before that did very well, and I can do it again.
Hey, what's Hugin? That's Hugin. It's Hugin.
I've made entertaining live stream content and shorts on this channel that did well, and I can do it again. It doesn't have to be for a game like Master Duel, and least of all does it have to be for a game that I actively hate. And if I can't do it again, then I would rather hang it up and call it quits. I'm done with lying to myself, and I'm done with streaming Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. To my viewers and supporters, you know how it is. It's not you, it's me. I am very appreciative
That's
all the people
reasonable.
that decided to follow, subscribe, join my Discord, and or hop into any one of my live streams within the context of Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm grateful to have met all the people that I did meet while interacting in this space. I hope that I can continue to interact and work with them if there is anything.
No, I mean
fun
this
to
is
do
this is
together in the
fine.
future. I suspect that for a
I'm assuming
lot
this
of
is
those
outro.
people, that this is where we will have to part ways. But if you are still interested in keeping up with me, I'm going to be happily pursuing long-form streaming on both YouTube and Twitch. So subscribe to this channel and follow me on there. I'm going to be exploring other strategy and card games similar to Yu-Gi-Oh! And find out where I best fit. So far, I've been really enjoying backpack battles. Hearthstone is coming up with its own tag duel game mode in
Hearthstone
two-player
is
battlegrounds.
so fun
Marvel
for me right
Snap
now.
is something I've been wanting to hop back into.
Heard nothing
Pokemon
bad about
TCG
this.
might be worth looking into. Warcraft Rumble is a new game I just started playing that has been really fun lately. And Teamfight Tactics is coming out with a new set, and it's
Their
looking
TFT was
to
really
be
fun.
very fun.
No, well, overall, I like that's just my take on all the arguments. There's like a lot more like in the game that we can go into, but overall, I think that I'm happy for him to be able to do what he wants to do, and I hope that everything goes very well. I think his subscriber count has actually gone up since he's done this, which is good. So I'm happy for him on that end, and I hope him the best. I just there's just some stuff I disagree with, and there is some unfair comparisons between card games in my eyes, at least. But tell me what you guys think in the comments down below. I really don't do these types of videos. If you enjoy these types of videos, let me know and put that in the comments down below as well. But overall, if you enjoy this, and I will get back to you with more competitive deck profiles and content soon enough. So until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.